Hi everyone, welcome back to Coffee, Books, and Rain, where we are spending the afternoon just talking about books, having a pretty good evening, and I am trying my best to keep my puppies from being too fussy. There is one particular episode I just recorded that my puppy Argos was just being a little fussy for no real reason other than he just wanted some attention. So in between that episode of recording and this one, I went over there and gave him just love and cuddles, and now he's got his little leg in the air like he is just passed out asleep. So we shall hope that for at least the next 15 minutes of recording or so, he shall sleep soundly. But I do know that in about 30 minutes, I will have a therapy session, so I need to get some recording done. And with all of that being said, we are going to dive right into what is going to be the last one I record today, which is The Haunting of Hern Hall by G.R. Pidgeon. Now, this was a very interesting book, and I did pick it up specifically because it said The Haunting of Hern Hall. The title itself gave me kind of echoes of The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, which is one of my more favorite sort of psychological horror reads. I don't know if you've read that particular book. If you've watched any of the actual movies, there is the 1999 movie, which is much more probably thriller horror in its portrayal of the book. The 60, I think it's either 59 or 63 or something like that. That one is much more true to the book. And it is much more representative of more of the psychological horror going on within the main character, Nell's mind. And then there is I think it's the Flanagan series on Netflix, The Haunting of Hill House, which is a bit of a further step away, but still has some psychological and still have some spooky thriller with some ghosts involved. That one is definitely what my friend John calls a love story or a love letter to Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House, but is definitely an adaptation in a different way. Really clever and well done, but I picked this one up really because the title itself made me think of The Haunting of Hill House. So let us dive into the summary, and we're going to go from there. Long ago, 3 innocent children played a game, and the consequences still haunt their family. In this eerie tale set in post-World War I England, after the horror of the First World War, disillusioned Army chaplain John Eliot arrives at Hern Hall, an isolated estate in the English countryside. Despite suffering from shell shock, John has made a promise to his friend Will, who died in the trenches while saving John's life. A promise he's determined to keep. John meets Will's sister Lucy, a beautiful, blind, and mysterious young woman, and is introduced to Will's grieving parents, Lord and Lady Chidingstone. But the house, shrouded by mist, seems to be tormented by some tragic past. After being invited to stay at Hern Hall, he has a series of unsettling and eerie encounters, even attending a seance conducted by the infamous Madame Blanche, a spiritualist medium who Lady Chidingstone hopes can communicate with her dead sons. As John grows closer to the family, he uncovers more about their traumatic history and the disturbing secrets hiding within the walls and tunnels of this great house. As the family's curse is the family curse an ancient legend tells? And if so, can the ghosts and the living ever find peace, or are they destined to forever be haunted by death? So this book is approximately 250 pages. It's not very long, and it does go very quickly. And it is expected to be published November 12th of 2024. I did have the ebook, and it does look as though this comes from Bloodhound Books. I did not have the audiobook, so I did just have kind of the, like I said, the ebook. I think it probably would have been a really cool ebook, so I wonder who probably read that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know. I think a guy with a good kind of spooky voice would have done a really good job. There are a couple of really great narrators I like who read mysteries, but I will say, in my personal thoughts, this has much more of a psychological horror rather than too much kind of ghostly vibes. Now, there are some moments that feel eerie, that echo of ghosts around the corner, or shadows in the corners, or a figure standing at the end of the bed. And all of that feels fitting for this book. We did just recently review a book called The Keeper of the Key, where the house was officially haunted. Like, I mean, there are ghostly figures crawling across the floors and being in bathrooms, and people are being teleported from one floor to another in the house and waking up in different parts of the house. So, definitely ghostly activity in that one. This one is a little bit more subtle in its portrayal of some of this more ghostly activity. And that's why I say some of this is a lot more psychological. The way the atmosphere is portrayed in this book feels more eerie, feels more lonely, feels more desolate and despondent. Most of the characters in this book feel as though they're just trying to survive in one way or another. Um, Lady Chidingstone, she is barely hanging on to life. She lost her youngest son at several, like I would say almost 30-ish years ago, to a very, what I would say, freak accident. And she almost blames her older son, Will, for not having passed in his place. And then Will passes away in the war, and so now she is herself just wasting away to almost nothing. She seems to be becoming a wraith herself. Then there is Lucy, who is the daughter, and she is the sister to Will, and I believe it was Albie, who is the little boy who passed at the very beginning when those three innocent children were playing. And Lucy, when she was playing with her brothers hide and seek at the very beginning, and this is kind of the opening scene, and I want to say it's the prologue. She's hiding, and her brothers are supposed to be finding her. Well, she hears something and she goes to the window, realizing that they haven't found her yet, which is very strange because her brother Will always has this sense about how to find people. Like, he has this kind of like ability to find people. Well, Albie is like, they're running across the front yard, and she's like several stories up, so she's trying to bang on the glass of the window to kind of tell Will where Albie is, which is kind of like, I guess, on this frozen pond. And she goes flying through the glass. Like, the glass breaks out and she goes falling and flying out, like, of the window. Happily, she's not killed, but she loses her sight in the process, and she gets some scars on her face due to this fall. However, in that same sort of evening, Albie does pass, and Will is kind of left grief-stricken for the loss of his brother, that he wasn't able to save his brother. And so that's what I mean about, there's a lot of psychological kind of guilt, horror, emotional trauma in this book that seems to follow everyone around. It feels as though it's more ghosts of the past rather than possibly true ghost haunting. But that's not to say it's any less frightening. Because there are definitely moments where John Elliot, who is this chaplain, After he is injured in the war, Will has kind of told him to go to his family's house and that his family would bring him in or take him in. And so he does, he goes. And so now he's kind of a little bit of an outsider in this household. He's never met these people before. All he knows is that Will said they would be welcoming to him. So he goes and he's kind of given up the clergy. He's given up the robe or whatever, the mantle of being a chaplain at this particular point. And so he no longer wants to be called father or anything like that. He just wants to be John. So it just doesn't feel right for him at this particular point to kind of follow that path anymore. But all of these things are kind of happening at this Chidingstone Manor, and I'm not saying he's questioning his faith, but there's a lot of stuff going on at this house that feels as though he's here for a reason, and maybe Will knew he needed to be here for a reason, because Will almost, I don't want to say Will had some sort of ability, because I don't feel like that's maybe right. But he was definitely drawn to this house for some reason. But this house is not completely normal. It's definitely been here since like 1530 or something like that. It's an old house. It has its secrets. It has some hidden tunnels. It has some ties to the occult. It definitely has seen some deaths in it. And upon at least one person's deathbed, a family curse was more or less placed. So all of these things did in fact occur within the walls of this particular manor. And that's kind of where like is the family cursed, as an ancient legend tells? And I kind of wonder if yeah, but I don't want to spoil it too much, because I would really I'd love your thoughts. I'd love for you to kind of dive into this and see what you think. I like good books that are not always spooky books. There don't have to be ghosts around on every corner, or blood dripping down walls or things of that nature. I like a good psychological book that kind of makes you think, and the sadness permeating the pages, that almost the feeling of isolation even when you're among people, was pretty palpable within this book as well. So again, very well done. When you give me a book called The Haunting of Hern Hall, you kind of expect one thing. But I was really pleasantly surprised by kind of what we got, because I don't think I always need just wraiths flying through the door and chandeliers shaking and all these sorts of things. During the seance by the medium, certain things happen, and in my personal opinion, a lot of theatrics. Cannot guarantee it for sure, because we don't 100% know, but feel like a lot of that could definitely have been theatrics on her part to try to make herself valid to stay in the house and kind of live there on their dime. However, I still know there's something going on in that house, and I'm just kind of keeping it as kind of surface level as possible, so that way I don't try to give too many spoilers, trying not to give things away. But with all of that being said, I hope I've given you just enough that maybe I've piqued your interest. It is still spooky season. In my personal thoughts, I think everything from fall all the way up till Thanksgiving is perfect for spooky season, and once we hit Thanksgiving, then it's Christmas season, and even then you can still read spooky books. If you're not a big romance reader, because I'm not always the biggest kind of romancy reader, if I read a romance book, it needs to be funny. I need some sass, some wit, some stealing of some stuff. I need some sort of espionage and sabotage and all that sort of stuff, I'm gonna need something going on. But thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you will like and subscribe and stick around for next time. And I will see you guys on the next page. I hope you have a great one.